class. Continuing on the topic of energy, this video lecture will be about living systems. That is, it'll be more about us. We will see that in living systems, the same general laws of thermodynamics apply. Energy is needed to do work, including biological types of work. And we will see that biological energy processes adhere to the laws of thermodynamics. On this first slide is actually shown a good summary of all that we will talk about. We will talk about how living systems, including we humans, obtain energy from food, our particular type of fuel that we call food, food that may be carbohydrates, proteins, fats, and that when we consume these foods, a process which we in general call metabolism takes place in our bodies that breaks down these fuel molecules, forming an intermediate molecule called ATP, the body's energy currency, and that the energy that is released and is stored in an intermediary manner in ATP is used to do work, and also some of the energy is released as heat. Okay, so let's begin. Oh, but first, just showing you a slide that I found interesting. Man as machine. Because living systems are very similar in many ways to machines, to the internal combustion engine in particular, which we talked about in our very last video lecture. Living systems, including us, we obtain energy from a fuel molecule, which we call food. The food molecules undergo oxygen-requiring combustion reactions, producing carbon dioxide and water, just as happens in an internal combustion engine. So there are a great deal of similarities, but there are some key differences. Probably the most important one is that the combustion reactions that occur in our bodies are not explosive, as they are in the piston in an internal combustion engine. And also these reactions are highly regulated. That is, after we have a meal, we're not all energized and then peter out over time. Instead, we have ways of regulating the rate at which we obtain this energy from our food so that we can go from one meal to the next. This process of breaking down food molecules in our bodies in oxygen-requiring combustion reactions, we can call metabolism. We can also use the word respiration. The chemical reactions below show the striking similarity of the type of reaction that can occur in an internal combustion engine and those that occur in our body. These are the overall reactions. And the first reaction starts with something called cyclohexane, which can be a component of gasoline, showing how it can react with oxygen to form carbon dioxide and water. Carbon dioxide gas and water vapor. Water is a gas. This is a reaction that occurs in an internal combustion engine. Now the second reaction shows an overall reaction for the respiration or the combustion of glucose, a simple sugar, a component of carbohydrates, showing how it can also react with oxygen to form carbon dioxide and water vapor. Now the big difference, as we have said, is that the second reaction doesn't occur as a single explosive reaction. Instead, it is broken up into a number of smaller steps. But still, it's the same overall type of reaction that occurs in our bodies as respiration and occurs in internal combustion engines. Now, other living systems have found other ways to extract energy needed for life. These include photosynthesis, plants, algae, some bacteria, which obtain their energy directly from the sunlight. A process, of course, which we call photosynthesis. Also, there are organisms that are chemotrophs. These are generally bacteria, and they can extract energy from other chemical substances. The ultimate source of energy for all life forms on planet Earth is actually radiation from the sun. Going back to our photosynthetic autotrophs, these organisms obtain energy by absorbing sunlight This process of photosynthesis involving these special molecules called chlorophylls, plants, algae, and some bacteria can carry out photosynthesis. A second general class of organisms are what are called heterotrophs. These are organisms that must obtain their energy by consuming other organisms. Among the heterotrophs, we have herbivores, that is, animals that consume plants. We have carnivores, animals that consume other animals. And we have dentritivores, organisms that consume decomposing plants and animals. I know that's a little yuck. We humans, along with bears and dogs, are omnivores. That is, we can obtain our energy by consuming either plants or animals, as represented here with a steak and oranges and carrots. And yes, I suppose there is another food group, junk food. Twinkies. Ugh. Now, when we think about energy in food, we oftentimes refer to a calorie. Notice this is a calorie with a capital C, a nutrition calorie, as opposed to a scientist or an engineer's calorie, which will be a lowercase and is 1,000-fold less. But a capital C calorie is defined as the amount of thermal energy needed to raise the temperature of 1 kilogram of water by 1 degree centigrade. Do you remember how big a kilogram of water is? You know what a 2-liter bottle of soda is. A 2-liter would be 2 kilograms. So it's half of a 2-liter bottle of soda. That would be a kilogram of water. And 1 degree centigrade is almost 2 degrees Fahrenheit. So a calorie is defined as the amount of thermal energy needed to elevate a half of a 2-liter by almost 2 degrees Fahrenheit, or 1 degree centigrade. Now, we often refer to foods in our diet as having a certain calorie value. For example, a cola is about 140 calories. A slice of cheese, about 100 calories. A normal 150-pound person requires about 2,250 calories per day for normal activity. Now, generally, our diets contain this amount of energy in the form of food. And this energy is then used to do various types of biological work, such as movement, walking, running, lifting weights, playing handball. Nervous system functions are sight, hearing, reflexes, thinking, reading, listening to video lectures, and various other metabolic functions, such as breathing, digesting our food, secreting hormones, our immune system, maintaining our body temperature, growing. These are all different types of biological work. Now, in each of these types of work, just as we talked about before, there must be some way to transduce the release of energy, the energy that is released from the breakdown of the food. This energy must be captured or harnessed or transduced to do this type of work. To explain all this, we would have to take some advanced courses in biology and biochemistry. I hope you will accept that there are ways in which this energy is transduced to do work. One example are the proteins in our muscles, which are called actin and myosin. These are proteins which use ATP, this intermediate energy molecule, to drive the movement of actin and myosin fibrils past one another, which is the basis for the mechanism of muscular contraction. Now, what happens if we digest more food, and therefore more calories, than needed for our daily bodily functions? Well, then the first law of thermodynamics comes into play. Energy is neither created nor destroyed. The extra energy has to go somewhere. And we don't have rechargeable batteries to store the excess energy. Instead, we store that excess energy as our own internal fuel molecules, which include fats and glycogen. Now, it takes about 3,500 calories, excess calories, beyond what we need for our bodily functions, to form 1 pound of fat. A double patty cheeseburger of this sort might be about this looks like it might be about 700 calories. So one would have to consume about 5 or 6 of these to form 1 pound of our internal storage molecule, fat. And likewise, if we digest less food, less fuel than we need for our bodily functions, we have to then turn to our internal reservoirs, our storage fuel molecules, breaking those down as a source of the energy we need for our bodily functions. Okay, we'll pause now and have a short quiz over energy in living systems. And then in one of our next video lessons, we'll talk about energy at a national or societal level. Such things as alternative energy sources and fossil fuels and wind and solar, topics of this sort. So we will see you shortly.